Now that Valve is shipping current Steam Deck orders in some lucky parts of the world, a lot of people are wondering if they should buy one. I've been using my deck almost daily for the last 3 months, and I feel like this is a question that I can answer for anyone that is on the fence. To be clear, there are a lot of reasons why you should buy a Steam Deck, but there are also reasons why you shouldn't, and I'm going to include both sets in this video so you will know if this is the right device for you. If you like content like this, a sub would be massively appreciated. I was originally interested in the Steam Deck because I thought it would be a great way to work through my backlog of Steam games. I've had Steam for over 15 years, and I picked up a lot of games directly or through game bundles in that time. The good thing about these old games is that they typically run flawlessly on the Steam Deck given how much headroom we have on the device. I think if you're someone that is invested in the Steam ecosystem already, buying a Steam Deck makes a lot of sense because it's tailored to the games that they offer. Now, not every game is fully supported, so you will want to check on any specific ones that you're interested in, but I have found that I've completed or played through a lot more games from this platform that I already owned than I ever did using a PC. A lot of titles that I wouldn't bother with on a desktop are a lot more appealing when played on mobile. Part of the reason for that is that this device is more enjoyable to play on than a PC with a keyboard and mouse because of how ergonomic and comfortable it is to use. I've already mentioned that this is something that I did not expect, and I think it is something that doesn't seem like it would be the case if you do not own a Steam Deck and you've never used one. The best thing that I can say to this point is that the Steam Deck has been my most used handheld since I bought one, and that use was not tied towards making videos on YouTube, which is an important distinction to make. I use this device in my free time because it provides one of the best gaming experiences possible. The controls are great, the screen is decent with good minimum brightness levels at night, and the front-firing speakers are awesome. It wasn't until this last month that I also learned the Steam Deck is a great travel companion. This also might seem counterintuitive given the size of the device, but I found that the Steam Deck could fit inside the bottom of my backpack inside the protective case without issues. The Steam Deck weighs about 2 pounds, so I didn't find this to be an issue, especially after carrying one around for a full day. That day included 2 cab rides and 2 high-speed rail trips, and I was able to pull out my Steam Deck and game on each of them. The screen being as big as it is helped here because I could easily play this from my lap while still being able to read all of the things on screen. Those first 2 points are important to most people, but I think the price versus performance of the Steam Deck is one of the biggest reasons to consider buying one. If you're new to this market, I can sum up the current situation to help you understand why the Steam Deck is as good as it is. Valve purchased exclusive access to a custom APU from AMD. This APU combines a very good GPU with a middle-of-the-road mobile CPU. When the Steam Deck was in development and when it launched, AMD only offered mobile APUs with the older Vega GPUs to commercial customers. Those APUs come with better CPUs, but the Vega GPUs do not hold a candle to the newer GPU in the Steam Deck. On top of having exclusive access to newer GPU tech than competing products, the APU in the Steam Deck also operates at a higher performance threshold at lower power levels. This means that it can not only outperform older PC handhelds based on AMD 4000 and 5000U series mobile chips, but it is able to destroy them while having significantly better battery life. Currently, AMD widely sells mobile APUs with better CPU and GPU combos compared to what is in the Steam Deck, but those APUs, namely the Ryzen 6800U and the Ryzen 6600U, do not compete with the Steam Deck in the sub-12-watt TDP range. In some cases, the Steam Deck can see double the FPS of those processors in the same workload at low TDP. Why is low TDP performance so important in a handheld? The lower your TDP is, the less heat you have that you have to cool, and the less power you consume. This can mean that the Steam Deck can easily win out on noise performance and battery life compared to other products that don't have exclusive access to the Steam Deck APU. If those are the most important things for you, the Steam Deck will no doubt have the best price versus performance ratio on the market. This is even without taking into account that this is in many cases the most compelling product dollar for dollar at $400 for the base price. When people buy products like this, they tend to care about potential resale value down the line. Earlier this year, a lot of people scalped their Steam Decks for well over the cost that they paid, but those days are long gone with resale prices near MSRP. In a market with ever-evolving technology, one of the biggest impacts to resale value can be the performance improvements from future generations. Consider for a moment that you bought a Ryzen 5000 or 4000U series handheld for a set price and can now buy a Ryzen 6000 series handheld for about the same price. What do you think will happen to the resale value of your older handheld? Given that the Ryzen 6000 series comes with a much better GPU that wipes the floor with the older Vega GPU in the 4000 and 5000 series, your resale value should take a huge hit. It might be too early to say, but I do not think that we will see the Steam Deck become obsolete to this degree by the next generation. The Steam Deck may still have the best low TDP performance on the market until we get to the Ryzen 8000 series mobile chips. If this is the case, the resale value should be held up by the sheer fact that the deck can provide a good gaming experience versus other options for the next year or two. This is even without considering all of the other compelling reasons to buy into the platform. If you're someone that likes to tweak and customize your device, the Steam Deck offers one of the best platforms available. What's more, a lot of these controls are easy to pick up even for novices. A single press of the right menu button will open up an overlay menu that gives you access to performance stats, frame rate limits, refresh rate limits, TDP controls, GPU clocks, and scaling filters. The best part about all of this is that you can enable per game profile settings to tailor all of these options to the game that you're playing. Even though I can do most of this on other PC handhelds, the ease of use is a big reason why the Steam Deck is my preferred handheld for PC titles. I play the deck a lot at night, and I've created a bunch of profiles that make the most out of the deck at low TDP levels. This ensures that my fan is always quiet, and the games are as smooth as possible. Beyond this, the Steam Deck offers unparalleled customization when it comes to controls, and nothing even comes close in terms of ease of use and scope. In any game, a single press of the Steam button will open up a game menu that gives you access to controller settings. Once here, you have countless options available to you, from programming the back grip buttons to changing how the gyro and trackpads are used. This customization is what made me like the trackpads as much as I do. For some of the games that I play, these have replaced my analog sticks because of how precise I can be with them compared to relying on the sticks themselves. For the first month of owning my deck, I did not even bother with emulation because I was happy with the performance that I could get from other handhelds that I own. When I got my second Steam Deck, I decided to delve into emulation to see if the deck could completely replace all of the handhelds that I use for emulation and for PC gaming. I recently did a video on this, and I was very surprised to learn that the deck is one of the most capable emulation machines out there, especially for the price. If you're interested in emulation, you should take a look at that video to get a good idea of what this device can and cannot do. The big takeaway that I have after filming that video and playing all of the games that I have is that the Steam Deck can do a lot more than I expected at low power levels when it comes to emulation. Unlike PC gaming, emulation benefits from a powerful CPU, which is not something that the Steam Deck really has at this point, but it is more than capable of handling big systems like GameCube, Wii, Wii U, PS2, Switch, and some Xbox and PS3. Depending on what you're interested in from that bunch, there really aren't many compelling options on the market that are near the price of the lowest config deck or cheaper. The Udon handhelds can do some of these systems on par with the deck, but Android lacks access to a lot of emulators that are available on PC at this point. If you're mainly interested in GameCube, Wii, and PS2, there aren't many compelling reasons to go out and buy a product that is more expensive than the deck, because you will only see minor improvements to those systems. On the other hand, if you're more interested in PS3, Xbox, and Xbox 360, I would say that you may find the experience on the deck to not be quite up to scratch, and that may be a reason to consider something based on a 6800U or better. There is one thing that I have not touched on in any of my videos, and it's the fact that the Steam Deck holds up very well as a PC in times where you need one with the purchase of a dock. This allows you to gain a bunch of ports that are missing on the deck and allows you to use an external monitor. Given that I have a lot of PCs available to use, this is not something that I have given much thought to, but there were times in my life where I could see myself using the deck as my only PC, given how capable it is. The deck runs a full Linux distro out of the box, and you can pop into it by using the Steam menu. Once here, you'll be in a traditional desktop experience that's a bit easier to use than some other Linux distros out there. If there's an app that you need that is not pre-installed, you can head over to Discover and browse for a free option. Back when I was in college, I would have been able to do everything that I needed with a deck and a few open source apps like LibreOffice. Everything else that I needed was web-based, and you can easily install Firefox or Chromium for that. Valve now sells and ships their own dock for this device, but like the deck itself, it is not available where I live. Thankfully, there are a ton of third-party options that all have various features that make them stand out, but the main thing is that there are a lot of affordable options out there if you're on a budget. If you want to use the deck in this way, but you don't like to use Linux, you always have the option of installing Windows on your deck. I think the only disappointing part about the deck is that it does not gain any additional performance while it is in docked mode. It's hard to complain given what we have here, but I think it would have been cool if we were able to push the TDP up a bit higher while the deck is connected to a dock to get some extra performance out of this APU. That brings me to one of my final points. There's one thing that I like to use to describe the Steam Deck that I think encompasses the product very well. The Steam Deck is currently a winning team product, and I like to use that to describe it because everyone knows what it means to be on a winning team. You win games, you get notoriety, and things are generally more fun because you're surrounded by people that are good at what they do. That is what the Steam Deck is right now. There are a lot of reasons why this is a winning team product, and most of them are things that I've already described in this video. Valve hasn't publicly stated how many decks they've shipped, but it should be well within 6 figures now, with rough estimates pointing from anywhere between 250,000 to over 1 million. Having a user base that big comes with some tangible benefits to consumers of this product, and I want to go over a few. The first one comes in the form of direct support from Valve. This might be an instance of counting your chickens before they hatch, but this volume of sales should have been more than enough to guarantee that Valve can comfortably cover the salaries associated with continual software support for this platform for at least 2 years. And for the record, it is highly uncommon for any company in this market to provide software support for their products after they sell them, let alone for more than the initial month of sales. There are probably only 2 companies that do this from the products that I review on this channel. So far, anyone that's owned a Steam Deck has received frequent software updates to the various channels that you can select on the device. These updates have been a mix of fixing bugs, updating security issues, and adding new features. I like when I see these updates because it's a clear sign to me as a customer that Valve continues to value this platform. I'm sure many of you have been on the opposite side of this where updates completely fall off, and it sucks. It's very easy to tell when a company has given up on supporting the thing that they sold you. Even if we ignore Valve's direct support for the device, the Steam Deck is an attractive platform for developers, and there are a lot of awesome projects that enhance the deck and make it more accessible. Are you into emulation, but you don't know how to get everything set up? You can use EmuDeck to handle most of the grunt work. There are a lot of cool community projects for this device, but I like the CSS loader for custom theme support and Vibrant Deck to increase the saturation of the screen. On the hardware front, Valve opened up direct supply channels with iFixit for replacement parts, and this is very beneficial if you end up having something on your deck break after your warranty is over and you want to repair the device yourself. This is also something that is not common in this niche. This is also an interesting platform for third-party products given the market size, and you can find just about anything that you could want, from skins to protective cases and the aforementioned docks. I went out and bought a bunch of skins locally due to how cheap they are, and I like being able to upgrade the dull stock look of the deck with something new. This is also possible on other handhelds in this niche, but your options are a lot more limited than they are with the deck. So far, we've talked about some of the biggest reasons to consider buying a deck, but I want to talk about some of the reasons why this might not be the best option for you. I think the first and the biggest reason why you might not want a deck is due to the size, but I have an interesting take on this topic. I am not of the belief that the deck is too big for a gaming handheld, but it may be too big for you to get enough use out of it to make it worth buying. The best way that I can explain this point is by pulling up an anecdote that I got from a subscriber about another handheld several months ago. That person worked long hours on a night shift and did not have a lot of free time to game at home. They had some downtime at work that they could use for gaming, but their gaming device needed to be small enough to pick up and play before quickly going back into a pocket. If you're in a similar situation, or you live a life that cannot accommodate a gaming device as big as the deck, you'd be probably better off looking for a smaller option. I think if I were working long hours at an office job without a lot of free time at home during the weekday, I don't think that I would get enough use out of the Steam Deck to make it worth it for weekend use only. I would probably get a lot more enjoyment out of something small enough to carry in a pocket and pull out on breaks or during a commute. My next point is on the topic of high-end performance. The Steam Deck is a very capable product, but if you're the kind of person that needs your device to work at maximum graphical options with very high screen resolutions and you don't want to stream games to your device, I don't think you'll be happy with the deck over something with a Ryzen 6800U. That chip would also have some compromises depending on the game, but it has a far higher performance ceiling than the deck, and you'd be able to access much higher graphical options if battery life wasn't a concern. My final point is an interesting take for me to have, but I would not buy the Steam Deck if I lived in an area where it was not officially available unless I already owned a Steam Deck that I could use for comparison, or the deck that I was buying was factory sealed. As many of you know, I did not do this and I ended up buying a deck that seemed to be decent enough, but it was a measurably worse product compared to the sealed second deck that I got. Now this only applies when the price you pay is over the official MSRP of the deck. If you live in an unsupported region and you can buy a deck in the future for under the cost that it was brand new, it is probably worth taking the risk if everything else seems fine when you test it. But that's going to wrap up this video, and I hope you have a good idea of whether or not you should buy a Steam Deck if you're currently considering one. It's a great device, and I think you'll really enjoy it, especially if this is your introduction to PC gaming handhelds. I've had a blast with mine, and I think it was well worth everything that I had to go through to get one. If you have any questions, you can leave those down below or on Discord. Happy gaming, everyone. Taki out.